Welcome back to Off the Page with Keira. We got a new lamp tonight. I don't know if you noticed for the last few days, it was a little dark in here. So thank you, Amazon, for getting us a new lamp. Oh, today, what a day. I don't know if I'm ready to tell you about it today, but it was a day of miracles. Last night I went to bed and I asked God for a sign. I was like, God, I need to feel you tomorrow. And we had some extraordinary miracles happen today. It's just a reminder, sometimes we just have to ask. We just have to ask, hey God, let me feel you. Let me make sure you're here. Because there's a law, and it is a law that I live by. If you ask, you shall receive. And so often, we don't think to ask. We're wanting all the time, and we're spinning in circles of what's not working. But are we asking? Are we asking? And that is a question that we often bypass, because like, God just knows what we want. Like, God's not some magic genie. You actually have to ask. There's a law of agency that God lives by. And when you ask, then you are using your agency. And so tonight, my invitation is that you just ask. Ask for what you want. What do you want? What do you need? Ask. No, that doesn't mean that we're always going to receive exactly what we want. But when we ask, there's a better chance of something coming in, right? And I have story upon story of asking this year. There was a day that I needed $200,000 in 24 hours. The amount of times that story has come around is a little bit more than you would think. And I needed $200,000 in 24 hours. And I did not have $200,000. And I went to God and I was like, hey, buddy, like, what do you want me to do? I need $200,000. And it was for the payment of the island and the TV show. They're both hitting at the same time. And I went to God, and God, I heard it so loudly. God brought in the parable of the man who's at the top of his house. And the flood was rising. He was on the island, he was on the top of the house, and he was like, God, save me. Save me, God. And a boat comes by. They're like, hey, get in. We're going to save you. And he's like, no, God is going to save me. Then all of a sudden a helicopter flies over. Like, come on, hurry, get in. We're going to save you. And the man says, no, God is going to save me. And then he dies. He gets to heaven. He's like, God, why didn't you save me? And God's like, I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. And when God said that to me, I released how the $200,000 was going to come. And the next morning, I was offered a $200,000 loan that dropped in by the end of the day. Is that how I wanted it to come? No. Also, did God answer my prayers? Yes. And I have learned that when I release the way I need it to come, well, then God just delivers. But when I have a very certain outlook, like it must come to me through this way and this outlet, it really tightens the possibilities of it coming. So we ask. We can be clear on how we want it to get here. We can ask, God, let it come through, ... and whatever way you see fit, God. And there's a rule that I live by. And if you work for my company, JOA, then you know that I live by this rule. And this is how I do believe my businesses have become successful. And the rule is this: everything is always working for me. And that means one time when the bank account went negative, I knew it was working for me. And I saw exactly why it was working for me. And then the bank account boosted right back up within 48 hours of $40,000. And it's because I truly believe this to the very core of my body, that everything is for me, even the hard things, even the tragedies, even the traumas, the abuse, all the things that I went through in my life. I actually believe that every one of them was for me. And I believe that when you have this knowing, then that becomes true. And then that is the magnet that creates miracles. And that is the magnet that pulls in success. And so it's a way of training your brain to always find how it's working for you. And what that does is that even when everything falls apart, as it will, especially if you're an entrepreneur, yeah, especially, everything will fall apart. Yes, that's like all the mothers who have little children. How ridiculous it would be to say, oh, you have 5 little children, your house is probably always clean. What are you even talking about? No, it's not. For sure, you have 5 little children. I would love to know the day that it is clean, right? And that's how it is for entrepreneurship. If you think it's going to be clean and orderly, and you think that it's all going to work out for you all the damn time, no, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be mayhem. And it's going to be chaos, which is why most entrepreneurs do not ever make it. But the few who are willing to see the good in everything, the few who are willing to see the lesson in the mess, who are willing to learn from every single time they failed, every single time something didn't work, those are the ones that succeed. And so I have story of this. I mean, I could just go on for days about how every bad thing has actually been for me. Sorry, I'm getting like so excited that my nose is running. Every bad thing, every hard thing is for you. And I remember when I think I've always had this outlook, as long as I can remember, but what really taught it to me this was 14 years ago, I read a book. I was in my dad's healing school. So my dad is a master healer, and he has a school called the Muscle Testing Academy. And I was in that academy, and he had us read a book. What was it called? Prison to Praise by Merlin Carruthers. And I remember reading this book. And there's a moment where this man, Merlin, he's a preacher, an evangelist preacher who had a vision. And in the vision, he saw humans climbing up this ladder. And as they were climbing up this ladder, they went through this huge dark cloud. And the only ones who made it through the dark cloud were the ones who were grateful for the dark cloud. Everyone else fell off. And so he taught this principle that what if you weren't just grateful for the things that were working, you were grateful for the things that weren't. And that is where freedom lives. Freedom lives when we are grateful for the things that we didn't want, when we are grateful for the hardships, the trials. We are really find the gratitude in there. It frees you. And this is where you find your deepest peace. And I will say in the last 3 years, I feel like before I got divorced, I would not have called myself an entrepreneur. I would call myself a hobbyist. Okay, I had a hobby. It was a nice little hobby. It made money, but it was not entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship began for me 3 years ago when I became the sole provider of my 5 children. When I started to run a business that needed to have income to provide for a family. And I was the sole entrepreneur, the sole seed, right? Like the engine that produced movement. And that's when I became an entrepreneur. And in my entrepreneurship, I have faced intense moments. I mean, I can't even tell you, like the amount of times that all of a sudden we got hit with a $70,000 bill, or that we had to come up with another $90,000 in 24 hours. It's like the stories are real. And time after time after time, when I held to my faith, and I knew without a shadow of a doubt that it would work, even when no one else would ever imagine, even when no one else would think that it would. I just knew it would. And so it did. And I do believe that it is faith that pulls in the miracles, but it has to be a faith that it goes down to the fucking marrow of your bones. It is a faith that I have every day that the sun will rise. It is a faith that every time I place my foot on the ground, I know that there is a ground. That level of faith. And I believe that level of faith comes when we find the good in the hard. And so I'm trying to think if there's a story that I could tell on this, but I am quite tired. As I always am at this time of the night. There's a story that's coming in, and I'm like, am I really going to tell this tonight? Sure. So the first time that God asked me to rent the island was in June of 24. God said, rent the sacred island and bring leaders to this land to hear God. And it was such a beautiful moment when God asked me to do this. I was in the shower on the island, and all the showers are outside on the island. So when you're in the shower, you're just looking out at the immense beauty of the ocean. And there's just something about being in the middle of the ocean on land that like nothing touches that. Like nothing touches the magic and the beauty of that. And I was in the shower, and this bird, this beautiful red robin, flies up and perches right on the edge of the shower with a worm in its mouth. And I knew it was a sign. It's a sign of abundance, but it's a sign when you see a bird with a worm in its mouth, and to have it fly straight and look directly at me. And in that moment, I heard God say, you will bring leaders to this island to sit, to pray, and to hear God. And so I signed the contract, $200,000 to rent an island without anybody paying. And I went out to try and fill spots for this retreat, right? And in my brain, I was like, well, the retreat's not till September, so I have like all these months to fill it. But that's not how it went. Because back in those days, I have learned my lessons as a seasoned entrepreneur. Back in those days, I didn't read contracts. It's so great. Oh, the good old days where I was just getting my feet wet. And so one day I get an email from the island, and they said, your $70,000 is due tomorrow. And I didn't have $70,000. And I was like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, it's in the contract. And I was like, oh, yeah, I should have read that. Oh, sweet Keira, who didn't read contracts. And I remember calling Joe Polish. Joe is one of my friends. He runs Genius Network. And I was like, Joe, what am I going to do? I owe $70,000 tomorrow. I don't have $70,000. And Joe was like, well, it looks like you got yourself into a pickle. I'm like, that's literally what you got from me? And he was like, welcome to entrepreneurship. And it was just like, okay, all right, this is how it goes. So I remember the next morning I went to God in my prayers. And I was like, God, you told me to rent this island. I need $70,000 today. And I had never produced $70,000 in 24 hours. This is the first time of all time, right? So like, this isn't like at this point now when we need 70K, like I'm like, well, I've done this quite a few times now. Like I have like something to lean on that I know how to do this. At that point, never, right? Like it never made $70,000 in 24 hours. And so I'm sitting with God and I'm like, I remember it. It was like so clear as day. I'm there in my prayer corner. It's like 5 a.m. It's so dark. It's freezing. No, it was not freezing. It just felt freezing because this was the summertime. I just remember it feeling cold in my room. And I'm sitting there with God and I'm like, what do you need me to do? Like, I'll do anything. Like, show me what I need to do to get this 70,000. And I hear God say, invite your mother to come to the island to write her book and pay half her way. And I was like, I don't know if my tuner's on right. Come again? And at that point, I would say that me and my mom had a good relationship, but it was not a relationship that I would bring her to the island. She had never participated in any of my work. None of my family had. And it just felt very vulnerable and didn't feel like a good idea. And I was like, I don't think that's the answer. And I heard God say, do you want $70,000 to pay the island? And I was like, yes. So God said, then invite your mother. So I text my mom right then and there. Hey, Mom, do you want to come to the island to write your book? I'll pay half your way. And my mom said that she got that text. She dropped her phone to the ground. She said yes. And in 48 hours, I had made $70,000. And I'm emotional because God delivered. And God showed me that when I ask and when I do, then God will deliver. But I had to offer up my pride. I had to offer up my ego. And I had to get humble and invite my mother. But I'm emotional because that healed my relationship with my mom. It was really sacred to have my mother there. And it was sacred to sit with her in her book and to treat her to this luxury experience that she'd never experienced in her life. And if I hadn't needed $70,000 in 24 hours, I don't think I would have had a soft enough heart to ask or hear God give such a commission. And my mom's book is published and it's in the world. A year later, I got to go to her book launch last month. And I have a good relationship with my mother now. Which before, I wouldn't say we talked hardly ever. And now we talk a lot. And she's in my world. And she's seen my work. She respects my work. So, this is me saying, like, if I hadn't been in that pickle, I wouldn't have gone to God and said, I'll do anything. What do you need me to do? And I wouldn't have been humble enough to do that. And so it was so for me. It was such a gift that God allowed that moment to happen. Because something greater came from it, which was a healed relationship with my mother. Which was a building block in my trust with God. That whatever I asked and was willing to humble myself and offer up whatever God needed, that it would work. And so I began to use that method over and over and over again. And I began to see that every time money got tight, there was a lesson. There was a lesson to be learned. God was teaching me something. God was refining me to prepare me for the abundance that was ahead. And in every moment of tight, every moment of really deep overwhelm and stress, and it has been. I mean, this is not for the weak. It's not. I mean, I've missed my periods more times than I can count due to stress. I've had weight gain. I've had seizures. I mean, this has not been the easiest path, but I will tell you, that is the only path I would choose, because who I've become in these moments of fires, in these moments of deep gut refinement, like I have just become a woman that I didn't even know. I didn't know I could become. Like, we're just at the beginning, you know? Like, we're just at the beginning. I can't wait to see what God has in store, who I will become, the woman that God has called me to be. But it has required an immense amount of faith and a consistent outlook that everything is for me. Everything. Even the hardships of divorce, even the aftermath of divorce, the loneliness, holy moly. I mean, so much loneliness. All of it, every piece has been for me. And I could sit down and write story after story of why it all has been. And so if there's one thing that you can walk away with tonight, is this opportunity to begin to see this. To begin to see that everything has been, is, and will be for you. And when you see life through those lenses, wow, the possibilities are endless. So, with that, I am going to go to sleep. I hope that you sleep well, and I'll see you tomorrow night.